Morning, everyone. I'm going to call to order the State Highway Commission meeting for August 14th, 2026 here in beautiful Ashland, Nebraska. First order of business will be roll call.
For the record, the State Highway Commission is assembled in the meeting room at the Ashland Public Library in Ashland, Nebraska. The date is Friday, August 14th, 2026, and the time is 8:30 a.m. A copy of the Nebraska Open Meetings Act is posted in the room. Please respond to indicate your presence at today's meeting. Commissioner Hawks, here. Commissioner Wolford,
here. Commissioner
Mello,
here.
Commissioner McGinnis,
here.
Commissioner Meister,
here. Commissioner
Koppel.
Here.
Commissioner Koppel is attending virtually and he is online.
Marissa pointed out, this meeting is being conducted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. There's a copy posted in the back of the room. First order of business. The review and approval of March 27th and May 22nd, 2026 meeting minutes. So moved and seconded. Marissa, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Hawks?
Yes.
Commissioner Wolford?
Yes.
Commissioner Mello?
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis?
Yes.
Commissioner Meister?
Abstain.
And Commissioner Koppel?
Yes.
He approves. Yes.
What we'll do now, before we do welcome in and everything, what I would like to do is to swear in our new commissioner. Yeah. Stand up here, find my notes. Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Matthew Meister, do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America.
That I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America
And the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
and the Constitution of the State of Nebraska
against all enemies and foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
That I will take the obligation freely without mental reservation
that I will take the obligation freely without mental reservation
or for the purpose of evasion
or for the purpose of evasion,
without any mental. And that I will faithfully and impartially
and that I will faithfully and impartially
perform the duties of the office of the State Highway Commissioner
perform the duties of State Highway Commissioner
according to the law and to the best of my ability.
according to the law and to the best of my ability.
And I do further swear that I do not advocate,
And I do further swear that I do not advocate,
nor am I a member of any political party or organization
nor am I a member of any political party or organization
that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
that advocates the overthrow of the government of the United States
or this state by force or violence.
or this state by force or violence.
And that during such time that I am in this position,
And during the time that I am in this position,
I will not advocate to become a member
I will not advocate or become a member
of any political party or organization
of any political party or organization
that advocates the overthrow of the government
that advocates the overthrow of the
of
government
the United States or this state
of the United States or of this state
by force or violence.
by force or violence.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Commissioner, I'd like to start with you in introductions and you can tell us a little bit about yourself.
My name is Matthew Meister, a longtime resident of Nebraska that spent several years after graduating the university, traveling and living in different states. So I understand just how amazing Nebraska is. A lot of us haven't had the opportunity to live in other states to figure out just how amazing Nebraska is. Grew up in Scotts Bluff, went to school at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, met my wife there. She's from Grand Island. So we're kind of from all over the state of Nebraska. After graduating and living in Missouri, Illinois, Massachusetts, came back to Nebraska, realized what a great thing we have going here and grew deep roots. I've been in Kearney for the last 35 years. For the last 28 of those, I've been a realtor with Total Banker. I've been a big part of the Realtors Association across the state of Nebraska. So again, I've traveled a lot of the state. So I appreciate the good roads, guys. I really do. Many, many miles traveling, meeting with realtors from all over the state. In the last few years, I've seen my kids grow and move on, and my son living in Omaha, a daughter living in Kearney. The daughter has 2 boys, and the son has a 9-week-old son. So 3 grandkids, and looking forward to what we're doing here.
Well, thank you. I'd like to just go down and everyone just do a quick introduce yourself and say what district you represent.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Heath Mello, representing District 2.
Again, Richard McGinnis, I represent District 1, which is south of the Platte, southeast Nebraska.
Matt Meister, I'm in District 4, which is from Kearney down to the southern border and across Grand Island, Hastings, that area.
Fred Wolford from District 7, which is southwest Nebraska.
Jim Hodge from District 6 and West Central Nebraska. George Stein.
I'd like to welcome everyone to District 1 meeting for the Highway Commission. District 1, again, is south of the Platte from about Seward on east all the way over to the Missouri River, goes all the way down to Rulo. A lot of miles. Brandon knows, he has to take care of them. And it's a growing part of the state, which makes it a little exciting, some things going on. And again, welcome. I'm glad we're out here in Ashland because, again, this is another growing part of the state. A lot of people around this part of the state visit Ashland Flats. And what I'd like to do is start our district presentation with Brandon Sverlik. He's our District 1 engineer.
Commissioner,
Yeah.
can I go first, please?
I was going to have Brandon go. Okay, I'll let you go. Yes, we need comments from Khalil there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Good morning. Just before I start, I'll be brief, I promise, but before I start, I wanted to recognize a few dignitaries here. I appreciate all of you showing up. I want to recognize Senator Clements as we work together. Appreciate everything you've done, Senator, for the state of Nebraska. I also like to recognize both Mayor Johnsons, I guess. Wahoo and Ashland, thank you, mayors. We appreciated last night you joining us for dinner this time, as well as I think Chuck Niemeyer, who's the Ashland Council President. Thank you. I do know that we have a few people from NDOT. I want to also welcome Justin Luther from Federal Highway. Thank you for joining us, Justin. Both deputies from NDOT with us are available here in case we need to have any questions. Mick Sislo and Amy Starr. Also, our communication manager, Jay, is here in case of anything. And thank you, Marissa, for what you're doing. I'd like to recognize our legal counsel, Nicole, if you can just kind of wave your hand so people can see you. I do know that there's a few others that probably will be missing here, but that's who's in there. Oh, right in front of me, the director, because he's get to introduce himself presenting. Jeremy will also be a part of the presentation. And commissioners, we wanted to make sure that we capture a lot of our actions here in the agenda, so you see a lot of different items in there. But Jeremy from Aeronautics will really highlight a few accomplishments that we have and give a little bit of information for what the department is doing. I also, we added what the department is starting this digital delivery, which is a key initiatives for the agency. So John Starr this morning, which we established a new division here not very long ago. And John Starr will be leading this division and leading the entire effort of the digital product delivery. It's very exciting for the department, and I think from the presentation you will see the future of the department is going in a different direction. One thing important to recognize right up front, it's an agency, when we publish our program book early this year, July, for the fiscal year 2027, we had made an assumption that we will be fully funded, especially on the federal side. And unfortunately, the federal authorization expired at the end of September this year. And we were obviously remain hopeful that we still will get a full year appropriation and see the authorization so we can continue in our business. However, the news from DC, obviously the House passed stopgap. It's really a continuous resolution funding the government through December 4th, and the Senate released their version, taking that to December 11th. So that's really 9 weeks versus 10 weeks, not a lot of funding for us. So I think the agency will remain cautious. We sort of promised that we will do nearly 2 million tons of asphalt and nearly 750,000 cubic yards of concrete in 2027. And hopefully that the funding would be available for us so we can kind of deliver on what we promised. We're going to remain cautious, though, that if we don't see a full year appropriation, but rather very short CRs, then I think tough decisions lie ahead of us and we may have to make them. The second thing that I really just wanted to make sure that we talk about and that is the safety. We continue to see problems, driver behavior, distracted drivers on our roads, and that's continue to be concerning to us. Data early August showed that we have over 2,300 phone-related crashes in Nebraska in the past 4 years. And we're just not seeing a whole lot of sort of compliant, and love to see and just remind people to buckle up and phone down. We're also ranked very bad on the usage of seat belts in the United States. We're ranked 46. That's not good. That's not a number that people ought to love to see people buckle up. It saves lives, and we're losing a lot of our fatalities that on the road are actually not buckled. I think for us, right now, we're going through our budget and continue to be doing our due diligence of the rest of the other agencies. We're tightening our build to do our part, but remain optimistic that we are going to deliver our program and take care of what we promised in 2027. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Cliff. He's right. We need to continue with our safety program. Now, I'd like to introduce Brandon Verlet from District 1, which is the engineer. We'll make a quick presentation on what's going on in District.
All right, good morning. I'm Brandon Verlet, District 1 engineer, and we're going through our district planning group here. Okay, how's that? Okay, I've only had about halfway coffee so far. Yeah, that's good. But we're going to start out this morning with some basic statistics from District 1 to kind of familiarize yourself with the district. I'll go through some construction program highlights from 2026, and then some highlights from 27 to 32 in our construction and planning programs. And then I'll end up this morning with a little maintenance side. So District 1, as Commissioner Megan has stated, is southeast Nebraska. It encompasses 13 counties, and we've got about 1,679 miles, of which 70 of those are interstate. And then with the multi-lanes, that equates to about 3,700 lane miles. 25 bridges that we're responsible for upkeeping. And we do that through our 15 maintenance and construction yards, you can see highlighted here. So the blue circles, the majority of those are going to be maintenance yards. However, there are 3 combined maintenance and construction yards, those being Lincoln, Fairbury, and Townsend. We've got 230 employees throughout the district to build and maintain our state highways. And our district encompasses about 25% of Nebraska's population, or 486,000 people. This map kind of shows a distribution of what we're building today for construction projects. We typically like to distribute those across the district just for staffing purposes. But this year you'll see there's quite a few projects in and around. This is our 2026 construction program. You'll see it's shown at $89 million. But this does not include all the projects that we're currently building. There's quite a few projects that were funded in previous years. Some of those are multi-year projects. A few of those examples are Wahoo West, which is resurfacing of 92, that was 11.8 million. 2.8 million for Husker South project on Highway 80. The $28 million Warlick interchange that I'll highlight here shortly. And then the $115 million interstate reconstruction west of it. So as you can see, 89 million is a pretty healthy program, but we're actually building much more at this construction season. And then the majority of these projects are going to be your standard 3-hour resurfacing type projects, pavement repair, mill, and asphalt overlay. But for today's purposes, I'm going to highlight some of the high priority, high impact projects. So the first project I'm going to highlight is I-180 bridges over Interstate 80. This is a $9.3 million partial replacement of 2 overhead bridges. United Contractors is the prime contractor on this project, and we're replacing 2 twin 312-foot long by 44-foot clearwood bridges. I say partial replacement because it's a replacement of superstructure, which includes the deck, the girders, the bearings, and the abutments. However, we are reutilizing the existing piers. Our bridge division determined that they have substantial life left in those piers, so we're able to save little time and money by reusing those. Anybody that's traveled I-180 through Lincoln knows it's a very heavily traveled route, and so there's to be able to phase those bridges. We're going to demolish and reconstruct the northbound bridge while we have head-to-head traffic on the southbound, and then we'll flip that. Put the head-to-head traffic on the northbound bridge and remove and replace the southbound bridge. So to do all that work with the phasing that you see there, we've got an estimated completion date of December of 27. And currently the contractor is building the crossovers, and then you'll see the demolition of that northbound bridge. Next program, project I'm going to highlight is also on I-180. It's the Highway 6 and Adams Street bridges over I-180. This is a $7.5 million full reconstruction of 2 overhead bridges. Again, United is the contractor, which makes coordination of the 4 structure replacements a lot easier. The Adams Street Bridge is 160-foot long by 27-foot clear width, and then we're adding a 10-foot sidewalk on the north side at the request of Lincoln Transportation. Adams Street will be closed throughout the duration of the project, and we've got traffic and pedestrian detours in place. And we also work with LTU and StarTran to accommodate those pedestrians that would normally use that across I-180. We worked out a deal where any pedestrian can jump on the bus on one side of 180, take the detour route around free of charge, and get across I-180. And then the second bridge is the Highway 6 or Sun Valley Bridge, also over I-180. It's a bit longer at 240 feet by 40-foot clear width. This is also a great to be able to close that to more efficiently reconstruct that. And completion date for both of those bridges will be May of 2027. And I might just add these 4 structures, I-180 over 80, and these 2 structures that you see here were made possible by a large federal grant of about $15.5 million, which covers the vast majority of these construction costs. Next project is Highway 77, the Willowbrook interchange. This is a $23.6 million interchange construction. Graham Construction is a prime contractor on this one. And this is the first of 2 interchanges to convert Highway 77 to a freeway standard. So we'll have a freeway from Interstate 80 through the Lincoln South Beltway. Immediately following this project will be the Pioneers Boulevard interchange. And this one, we're able to maintain traffic throughout the construction. We've got both lanes of Highway 77 in both directions open at all times outside of a few lane closures. And West Denton and Warlick cross traffic is being handled temporarily. So very little impact to the traveling public as we build this new interchange. The estimated completion date for this one is July of 27th. However, the contractor has submitted a very aggressive schedule. He's ahead of schedule. There's a chance we could be able to open this up to traffic by winter and then just do some peripheral work come spring. Final project under construction I want to highlight is Pleasantdale and Northwest 56th Street Interstate 80 reconstruction and expansion. That's a $115 million project, about 7.5 miles. This project, we are widening the interstate to 6 lanes going to the center, replacing the grassy median with additional lanes and a concrete barrier. And that just that allows us to build the project without purchasing additional private equipment. Interstate 80 is being maintained, traffic is being maintained through construction with 2 lanes in each direction. Detours will limit to a few single direction closures, and that was to demolish the overheads one half at a time and then place the girders. We are replacing 8 structures, including 4 overheads, and the estimated completion date for this one is May of 2027. However, major construction should be complete by December, and traffic will be in its final configuration, eastbound and westbound, separated by the permanent concrete. Those are some of the highlights of what we're actually building today. Now we're going to talk a little bit about our 2027 construction program. That's valued at $233 million. However, the vast majority of that is $173 million interstate expansion, making up where the current project leaves off. That would go from Pleasantdale to Sioux. So that's the bulk of that $233 million. So I'll highlight a few projects from 27 as well as 28 through 32, the planning program, which is 8 through 28. First project is the junction of US 34 and M50. This is a relatively small $3.3 million roundabout construction. But it's an important project as it's our first project to go through the digital project delivery. And John will go into this in much greater detail in a little bit. But just high level, it's a shift from traditional paper-based plans to a data-rich 3D digital model. And then that model is used throughout the design of the project, in the construction where the contractor can import parts of that model into their equipment to actually build it to plans. And then it's ultimately transitioned into as-built after the project is complete. And this, one interesting thing is that it uses the model as a legal document rather than a hard copy traditional plan set that's signed and sealed by the engineer. So as I said, John will go into much greater detail on the digital project delivery effort. But those are kind of basics. We anticipate constructing this next year in 27. We just had a pre-bid meeting. We brought the contractors in earlier in the week to describe what deliverables we'll be handing them, what we'll be providing, what we're not providing, just to get them familiar with it before the bidding. And then we've got the consultant on board that will be able to assist the winning contractor through this very first project during construction. Next highlight is the next interstate expansion from Stewart to Pleasantdale. It's 173 million reconstruction and expansion of I-80 from about 9.6 miles, picking up at Pleasantdale and extending that west to Seward. There's a significant amount of structures on this one as well, which is a large portion of that cost. We're replacing 14 structures and included that as 4 overheads. We'll also be reconstructing the portions of the ramp at Seward and for interchanges. And much like the current project, we will maintain 2 lanes of traffic in each direction. However, we did sit down with the consultant and rework the phasing, so I think you'll see a lot better traffic flow in this next one. What we did is in that very first phase, we're requiring the contractor to do some additional paving and then we move the construction of the permanent barrier to a final phase. So what that does is it allows a full incident shoulder in both directions throughout construction. So any stalled vehicles or trucks are able to move out of the way of traffic, keep 2 lanes open. We had extensive meetings with the state patrol and the sheriff's office and our fire and EMS responders for the current project to talk about incident management. They've done an excellent job. This will just make it a little bit safer and open up that corridor so they're able to more efficiently manage those incidents. Next project I'm going to briefly mention is a large expansion from lot to 3 lots. However, Chris is going to cover this one in much greater detail, and there's some actually needed by the commission. So I'll skip over this one. And the final project I want to highlight is the US 6 and N31. This is a very large $250 to $300 million resurfacing and 4-lane expansion of highways 92 and 275 to expressway standards. It's a 16-mile corridor, and much like the Fremont to Wahoo project, it's primarily a 2+2 strategy. We resurface existing lanes and reutilize those, and then build 2 additional lanes where possible. There are several stretches where we'll be rebuilding 4 lanes. For example, east of me, you get into some rolling hills. We knock some of those down for sight distance and better profiles. And then when we get to UTAN, building a viaduct over a railroad track. The crossing is currently in the corporate limits, and it's immediately adjacent to a mainline bridge, which complicates things. So due to the extreme grade raise that's needed to be very impactful if we were to build that through UTAN. So we'll most likely do a southern bypass of the city of UTAN to build that viaduct. As far as the status, we've had 3 public information meetings held in April and May of this year. We're still in the concept delivery and preliminary design phases. So the very earliest you would see construction of this one would be in 2032. But much like the Fremont to Wahoo corridor, it's going to be completely funding independent. So we will get them designed, ready to go. And then as funding becomes available, we will build these critical projects. Okay, so those are some of the highlights of what we're building now, what we've got coming up in the future. I always like to talk a little bit about maintenance because these are the guys that are doing the day-to-day work, keeping our roads open and safe. So a little highlight on winter operations. This very first bullet is not specific to District 1, but it's statewide. But the DOT is currently updating our aging snow blower fleet. The original inventory was 26 blowers when we started this up about 2 years ago, and the average age of those is 36 years. In District 1, we've got 3 blowers. One is 21 years old, one is 39, and one is 48 years old. So as you can imagine, these blowers are old, they're discontinued. It's difficult to get parts for them to keep them running. So that's why there's the effort to modernize our fleet. The goal is to reduce those 26 blowers down to 16 within the next few years while modernizing it. To date, we've received 2 new blowers, and we've got an additional 2 on order. It's going to take a while to get through the fleet as they're almost $1 million a piece for these large blowers. But once we've got the fleet modernized, we're going to locate those across the state. In the past, each district had 2 or 3 blowers that mostly stayed within their district to handle their needs. But with a smaller fleet, we're going to you'll see them start moving around to where they're most needed in the state. The second item is, in addition to those large self-propelled blowers, District 1 purchased a motor-mounted blower, which is much smaller, but it gives us another tool for those smaller uses. And then finally, District 1, we ordered our first bi-directional tow plow. As many of you know, the tow plows are a huge force multiplier when it comes to our interstates and expressways, allowing them to clear multiple lanes in a single pass. One drawback is they typically only plow one direction, so we may be trying to clear 2 lanes of snow plowing into the wind. These bi-directional plows allow us to change that direction, and as opposed to trying to push everything to the outside into the wind, we have the option of pushing it to the inside to the median. So it just gives us a little more options to work with the weather instead of against it. That's the highlights for construction and maintenance. I'd be happy to try to take any questions if there are any.
Any questions for Brandon? Yeah, go ahead, comment.
Part of the expressway system, and it's actually the expressway system. It's just, it's based on traffic, it's 4 lane. So that's good.
Yes. Yeah, so that the Wahoo to Fremont is part of the expressway system, and then picking up at that intersection, the West Mead and extending that 630, as you pointed out, is not part of the original expressway, but the traffic just dictates the need.
I'm thinking, you were in Columbus in the last meeting, you still comment you got was finished 81. That's much further out than 2034. And I just think we probably want to answer. I need is, so that's okay.
Both the commissioner were part of the VNA selection project. Highway 92 has a lot more traffic obviously than 81, and that's really why it shifted. So we still quite a bit. So funding from bill, which we don't have the funding to see what either one of these four, but not in general, impact of traffic and level of service certain areas. Some safety has to really start to push us a little bit harder.
Any other comments? Commissioners? Anybody from the audience would like to comment on Brandon's? Or we're gonna have a, for open comment at the end.
This is, okay,
This is just on his presentation.
deals with I-80.
Okay. We'll get it. I know what you want to discuss.
Okay, all right.
You can discuss it at the end.
Okay, yes.
Okay. Any letters?
No, there's no letters.
Okay. Thank you, Brandon. Next up, is our Highway 77 project. Wahoo to Fremont presentation. Chris, what?
My name is Chris Lutz. I'm in roadway design at NDOT. I am here today to talk about the Wahoo Fremont South project in Florida. I know I was kind of hoping Brandon would get on a roll and maybe just run through this. One quick backstory on this corridor. I graduated college in the late 90s. Went to a consulting firm, day one. Project I was working on was called Meadville, part of this corridor. Khalil, I think you were probably a consultant coordinator unit head back then. So that kind of tells you where we're at during this corridor. Maybe now with Brandon leading D1, maybe we could get it developed. So what I'm going to talk to today is provide an overview of the project, show some design features, present the costs and schedule, and then request Highway Commission recommendation of the project location, design, use of access control, and relinquishment of the project. Very similar presentation to what you guys have maybe seen on the project. The purpose of the project. There's three of them. Fulfill legislative intent to continue the development of the expressway system identified in the 1988 Nebraska Highway Need Study. Improve regional connectivity for vehicles in the area by providing important expressway connections with N92, N64, and N109 while maintaining convenient highway access for communities in the area such as Wahoo, Mead, Cedar Bluffs, and Fremont. And improve the conditions of the existing pavement and infrastructure, as well as improving the safety and reliability of US 77 for the traveling public and maximize the cost effectiveness of the project. Project need. the need for this project is to advance the expressway system from Lincoln to Fremont. And the Traffic Engineering Division of NDOT and District 1 have determined that increased traffic counts on this segment of US 77 warrant increasing the traffic capacity. Project overview. So this project would widen just over 60 miles of US 77 between Wahoo and Fremont, starting just east of the new Wahoo roundabout and extending just south of the Platte River Bridge. It would include a roundabout at the US 77 92 intersection, as well as a roundabout at the US 77 and N109 intersection for north. Two arc cuts would be constructed, one at the US 77 and N64 intersection, and another at US 77 and County Road W, which goes to Woodfield Lake. Last, approximate 4 miles would be 4 new lanes built off alignment. You see that in blue there, utilizing right-of-way that was purchased back in 2004. The scope of work is some of the other 2+2 expressway projects that we've got, but it's adding 2 new lanes adjacent to the existing US 77, which will include a P4 grass median. And as I mentioned, the northern 4 miles would be 4 new lanes on off alignment. Other improvements would include culvert work, new bridges, lighting, access relocations and consolidations, side road modifications, and improved intersections. This is just a picture of our typical section. This would be carried throughout the project. Once again, our 2+2 projects, we add 2 new lanes adjacent with a 54-foot median. Obviously, for the 4 new lanes, those last 4 miles would be brand new off alignment. As I previously mentioned, we do have some intersection improvements, including the 2 roundabouts and the 2 arc cuts. As part of an alternative analysis supporting a Section 404 individual permit application to the Corps of Engineers, many environmental resources were evaluated, as you can see there on the screen. Alternative alignment designs and a matrix of impacts was developed. We conducted multiple public meetings and addressed questions and comments, and from this, we selected the preferred alternative. Public involvement. We've had 2 rounds of public involvement for this project. First was 2 public information meetings held in June of 2024. The major takeaways from this round of public involvement was overall project support. And maybe the last 2 were, hey, why aren't you using the right-of-way that you purchased back in 2004? And maybe the last was, what's taking you guys so long? From this first round of PI, we sent out a public notification update in November of 2025, stating that we are evaluating the potential of the off-alignment option for the northern 4 miles. We're planning another round of PI in the summer of 2026. And fast forward just to a couple weeks ago, in late July, we held one stakeholder meeting and 2 more public information meetings. There was great attendance at these events with lots of positive feedback for the off-alignment change. Access control. So for this project, NDOT intends to purchase new access control at specific locations along the corridor. These details are being refined during final design. So on this 4 miles of off alignment, there would be a relinquishment. So we have a relinquishment to Saunders County. And depending on the time of construction, that portion of existing US 37 could be repaired prior to the relinquishment if needed. Formal relinquishment agreement would be executed at a later date, and we have started early coordination with Saunders County discussing this potential relinquishment. We met with the highway superintendent, and we've had subsequent conversations with them. Schedule and cost. The estimated cost of constructing the proposed project is $135 million and would derive from state funding sources. Construction will be completed in segments and could begin as early as spring of 2029 with completion as early as fall of 2030. So that concludes my presentation. At this time, I would like to request Highway Commission recommendation of the project location and design, use of access control, and relinquishment of a short segment of US 77. I believe there's a resolution that's included in your packets.
Yes. Marissa, will you?
The item, the item in question is the approval of the project location and design and the approval of the use of access control for the Highway 77 Wahoo to Fremont South project.
So moved.
Second.
Yeah, question.
And we are also approving relinquishment.
Correct.
You physically looked
Yes,
at.
I went, maybe go physically look at it. It may be, I've done it a couple.
It's just one of the few statutory things we have to do.
I heard that.
So you are okay with the relinquishment as the commissioner?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
So it's been moved and seconded. Do we have any other comments from commissioners on this? Do we have any comments from the public on this resolution? Seeing none, Marissa, will you call the question?
Commissioner Hawks? Commissioner Wolford? Commissioner Meister?
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis?
Yes.
Commissioner Mello?
Yes.
Commissioner Koppel?
Yes.
He says yes.
Got approval? Keep moving forward. Forward. Start with our project delivery presentations. I'm sorry. Presentation. Everybody, a question for us. Picture of what digital projects are. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about a topic I'm super passionate about, digital project delivery, trying to lead this effort. So hopefully today what I'm going to try to get across is what is digital delivery at NDOT? How is this effort being supported and advancing nationally? What is our digital delivery path? And then a brief overview of our first model of the document project that we're in that I highlighted earlier. So in order to communicate this and try to paint a picture, I have a couple things. If this video plays at the end, that'll help. I don't know if that's going to work or not yet. So essentially, I'm going to draw an analogy here between paper maps and our traditional 2D plan set. So what the picture I'd like to paint here is if we were to plan a trip across the country today, it's very likely we wouldn't have a stack of 10 to 15 maps to get across the country. Why we probably be using GPS on our phone. And why would we do that? These paper maps are essentially only contain the information that was known at the time they were printed. They can't warn you about real-time construction, accidents ahead, closures. What about where's the next gas station? If you're like me and you really enjoy good coffee, how am I going to know to bypass the people on the big chains, and find baristas and Carney, for example, right? One of my favorites. So that's how I'm going to do it. So traditional plan sets are really our industry's paper maps. They are static. Changes don't happen without, a bunch of manual rework. They take a lot of drafting, and they can become out of date really quick. So digital delivery is really our GPS navigation. So instead of lines on paper, we're building an interactive 3D digital asset that contains all the information needed to construct it. So construction's not looking at 4 or 5 different areas in there to find information on a bridge and a beam and clearances. They're actually clicking on an object. They're finding the exact measurements. They're finding the specifications. And they're finding the clearance heights in 3D. And yes, they can still do some printing out of that environment into snapshots to use in the field. But not only that, once it's built, that information then is maintained through as-built. It really opens the opportunity for us to manage that information moving forward, reuse it through maintenance and operations, and then further into planning and design as we move forward. So we're not really changing what we build here at all. What we're doing is we're changing our technologies, we're changing our processes to navigate the build. We're cutting out manual rework. We're reducing field errors. We're saving dollars, and we're increasing safety to the workers and the public through all of that. So now my scale comes in handy, my coffee cup down there. That plan set is actually the Warwick Boulevard that Brandon brought up, so you can kind of see the size of that. That plan set up there is Lincoln South Beltway, next to the same coffee cup, right? So that's the way we traditionally communicate information. We're switching that to a digital environment. So really, essentially, is to keep it simple, create the information in one spot and let that information kind of get to the right people, the right places, and the right tools and the right systems. Is what we're looking for. So that single source of truth, reducing errors. We're looking at things like safety, quality. From safety, we're getting people off the road. Surveyors by using advanced scanning techniques, inspectors by leading into this information. Just like when I'm driving down the road, where would I be on this map? Well, if I'm standing out there on a project with an iPad in this model, I know exactly where I'm at. Well, we're supposed to be here. Maybe there's a gas line running or anything I can see. That's when it starts to open up. From a quality standpoint, we're delivering contractual data that's trusted. That's very big to our contractors because in today's world, we give them some information for information only, but we stamp and sign that plan set. Right now, we're saying this digital information is the truth. You can trust it. You can connect it to your systems, and that's how we're going to operate. And again, long term, basically the assets and the attributes about them can be very important for us. So from a national perspective, just kind of a little history here and kind of how this is being supported and also advanced. I'll really kind of highlight a few things here. The FHWA all dated all the way back to about 2010 or 2012. There's been a lot of initiatives that they've been behind, that they've been working with DOT to advance, such as 3D, GIS, drones most recently, digital as-built, e-construction, you name it. All these things point to what we're talking about today. But pointedly, back in 2021, they released an Advancing Bid for Infrastructure National Strategic Roadmap. They also, since that time, have by law an ADCMS grant program, which started, I think, in 2021. And multiple other grants between AID and STIC. So obviously a lot of funding going towards it. ADCMS to date has 18 states and over 50 million, with 34 million left to allocate. NDOT is poised to pursue the next ADCMS when it gets released. And so we're excited about that. We think we have a good message. We, as a matter of fact, have a partner state already on board with us, and we're working with another state. And we have letters of support lined up from our ATC, from our ACTC, and others. In addition to that, one last thing, Everyday Counts, EDC, that initiative, they're on number 8. That in 2026 and 2027, you can see integrated project delivery on that. So that just really speaks to the advancement that the FHWA sees, and then that this is becoming implementable at this point in time. Just a couple other points here. What about the industry? What do they think about this, right? So 2024, the ACEC released their positional paper on digital delivery and model as a legal document. And just to summarize one quote out of it, they're committed to champion the adoption and integration of digital delivery in the engineering industry. They see it as paving the way for more efficient, accurate, and sustainable future. Likewise, the AGC. AGC has a policy statement released about the same time. And again, a couple quotes out of there. They fully support standardizing how digital information is created, transmitted, and permitted for use. including model as a legal document, open data standards for consumption of data regardless of software or proprietary file types. So as you can see, all parties here are supportive and working towards the same common goal. So what is our progression to digital delivery been? I'll just highlight a couple of items down here, but dating back to 2014, we started really doing 3D design in roadway design. So doing modeling back then, we were delivering model files with, a roundabout in Hershey, I think was the first one we delivered actual model files for information only. And since that time, we've had some guidelines that projects of a certain size, we will model to a specification that will give you the information for information only there. But kind of advancing that fast forward, the agency put an increased effort on defining digital delivery. In 2025, we released our implementation plan. A lot of work went into that. And when I say a lot of work, a lot of outreach is one of those things, right? Working with the agency, working with the ACEC, getting input from a lot of people to determine what does this look like that's going to work for all of us. Now we ramp it up a little bit in April 2025. We stood up an AGC digital delivery work group. I'll speak a little bit about that here in a minute. And then from there, you can see we've advanced very rapidly with certain components of it, all the way to August 27th, our scheduled first letting of our first model of legal document project. So back to kind of those work groups, how are we managing this change? As you can imagine, this is a big change, right? I'm not going to say it isn't. But I think we can all agree that it's a change for the better, especially as we move forward in today's world. So again, back to our partnerships or relationships, standing up this AGC work group, you can see the people on it. But we've been meeting every 4 to 6 weeks since I think around April of 2025. We've navigated through multiple multiple topics to try to get aligned on how this looks, all the way down to the project we're talking about and some input into the deliverables we were creating, much before letting, how would we convey the information to make sure it's fittable and buildable. So working with the agency on those type of things. Likewise with the ACEC, very similar. ACEC and us, this kind of come to maturity here this spring. And, kind of same thing. We're meeting monthly on this and working with our ACEC. So now I'm just going to show a little bit about kind of the state of the state, I guess. And with that, this slide is part of an AASHTO Joint Committee on Electronic Engineering Standards. Just really a standard way for DOTs to measure and report where are you at in this digital journey, right? So all the way on the left, that's essentially saying I'm going to move from 2D drawings to 3D, but I'm still going to give you a plan set. And then that reaches a maturity level all the way to the right there, which is, hey, we're doing everything digitally. We're giving you a digital model and we're collecting digital as-builts. So essentially, we've got really good data at the end of the day and not just plans, scanned on this electronic device that you're searching through later. So what's that look like today? This survey literally, it was, August 2026. It's going to be presented at another conference by some AASHTO folks, but this shows kind of a map here of what the state of the state is around us. I would say don't lean too much into the gray, meaning they're doing nothing. That could easily mean they just haven't reported back yet. But with that, you can kind of see if you can pick up the colors there where Nebraska fits in this. So we have been advancing very rapidly recently. And with this first model of the legal document project being let right now in this month, we're calling ourselves level 4, planless contractual model. I don't call it a pilot, I call it phase 1, because a pilot means we may stop. Phase 1 means we're going forward, right? So, but we're in our phase 1 projects, as Brandon alluded to. Kind of the key here is right now, there's a few level 5 states, PennDOT, Utah, Caltrans, and we're one of the 5 level 4 states. And kind of the key thing here is there's 9 states that are level 4 or above today. Back to these other lead states, I would say we have a very strong relationship with all states, but pointedly, these lead states like Utah, PennDOT, Caltrans, TxDOT, we're working very closely with them, gathering their lessons learned. Matter of fact, we're sharing some of the same consultants that are helping them do their work. So it's very much a cohesive effort across the country trying to get this thing done. With that, then the next question on the survey for the DOTs, well, where do you see yourself in 1 to 2 years? So really what the point out here is, we see ourselves being level 5. We're planning to capture digital as-built on Brandon's project, which all of those things we're doing is helping us build the framework for what this looks like moving forward. The key here is now we have 19 states planning to be level 4 or above. So within a year or two, we went from 9 to 19. Back to this project, Brandon gave you a couple details on it. I'm going to focus a little bit on our first digital project here. Brandon touched on the bidders meeting. We did have that this week. We had over 100 people attending, 30 or so in person and 70 plus online. So very good attendance on that. Matter of fact, I've seen, a couple contractors in the room diligently writing notes, and another one had his phone up recording the screen the whole time. So I think we gave them some good information. We gave them an extended advertisement period of 6 weeks. So we gave them plenty of time. It's scheduled to be left the 27th. And as Brandon alluded to, we've also got scoped in where we've got our digital delivery consultant on board to help them and the NDOT through the construction of this. Well, besides that project, well, what's our plans right now? Where are we at? Where are we? So we have identified 5 phase 1 projects. We did that back in the spring of 2025, and we've been marching towards it. So the first one on the list in District 1, and then you can see in August, in the 2027 letting cycle, we'll have 3 of them, and one in District 2, which is a ramp project, and then kind of foundationally also one in District 7 and one in District 8, which are going to be 3-hour resurfacing. And you all probably realize that's our bread and butter. That's a lot of what we do. We realize that focusing on making sure we can get those projects digital is a key component to what we do. So we do so much volume of those types of projects. And then we have a bridge replacement in 2028. So if you kind of read between the tea leaves, we're spreading it across the district, different teams, different scopes of projects to kind of align these things as we do these first projects. And then our plan from there is to scale beginning in 2027. Projects that begin design want to have the ability to call those digital. So we'll be making some strategic decisions later on this fall on what that looks like. With that, if the video plays, and I don't know if it's going to or not, just some context, this video, we'll display like a minute and a half or 2 minutes of it if it does. And it's a video that was professionally done as part of a pooled fund that like 28, 29 states are contributing to, and outreach was a part of it. So I threw a lot of words at you. I think this video in a couple minutes will really paint the picture much better. And then once that ends, I'll be happy to address any questions.
Won't be able to get out of it.
Okay. Well, I think maybe I'll narrate it here. If you just watch it, I think we can pick up some of the nuggets here. Once they get showing some, so you can kind of see that they're really just illustrating here what that environment looks like and how the information about light poles and things are contained within the model. And essentially that means that people in the field can be working with an iPad, clicking on those things and understand where it's at, or superintendent in a job trailer would be working on a PC and looking at this information and maybe creating work plans for the day for people. So rather than kind of being limited with the paper and the views and the information that you're traditionally given, and rather than doing things like she's doing there, you have the information at your fingertips and the ability to kind of present that information and work with it in a way without changing it that best suits your needs. See what happens after this one. Yeah, I think we can stop it. Without the audio, it's probably not doing a very good job presenting the content. But hopefully, with all of that, you have a decent idea of what we mean by digital delivery, where we're going, where the value is. So we got all.
Does the commissioner have any questions at this point? I have a couple. Is it a proprietary software at all, or is it open source, or?
Yeah, good questions. So how do I explain this best? I mean,
yes, in today's world, where all people are going to use some certain proprietary software, right? You know, we use a certain software where we design all our stuff in. We use a certain kind of vendor that is our survey software vendor, right? And there might be 3 or 4 of those out there. There might be 3 or 4 design ones out there. Ultimately, in today's world, and we're proving it, and many other states are proving it, you can deliver that information in those proprietary formats. But you can also export some information into some open data standards right now. That's actually going to mature, and I'll try to answer that question a little bit. So we're able to present them, a stack of digital information that's signed. Some of that is what I would call open data. Maybe it's an Excel file, maybe it's IFC. I don't want to get into the file extension, it won't really matter. But at the end of the day, yes, there's some open data, and yes, there's some proprietary. But you are able to connect that information, even if it is proprietary, through either linking the information, depending on kind of how you go about that. Now, that's today's world, right? What's really changing in the industry, what AASHTO is behind, and what this pooled fund that I spoke about is all about, is about creating open data standards. So what they're doing is working with the state DOTs that are contributing to come up with those data standards that will then fall into an open data standard framework, which is Building Smart International, which is an international, really digital delivery is BIM, if you've heard that term, and BIM, Building Information Management or Modeling, is prevalent in the vertical industry and has been for quite some time. Building Smart International is an international organization that maintains standards and frameworks. So we're aligning as a country, the U.S. and AASHTO, with that to create these open data standards in the tools. So a few years down the road, we don't see what we do and how we model the project changing significantly, because we'll still be using tools like Bentley, Autodesk, or whatever that is. But those tools will be able to export the information into these true open data formats. And then as all technologies between the Trimble, like AgTech, whatever the contractors use on their machines, they'll start working towards adopting those standards. So we're doing the work now to align all processes. We can still, and as you can see, many states are doing it, we can still take advantage of a lot of things. We just see over time, those will become more seamless and some of those doors will be knocked down. If that makes sense.
Yeah, question. I have one more. How does this going to work? What I call hybrid situations where the state will bid the project, but the city will do the work or manage the project. Are most of the cities going to be involved with this, or?
Over time, yes, they will be. We haven't, chosen those projects yet, but yes, we're going to have to get to a point where we're all kind of working on the same playing field over time.
Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John, this was just terrific information in terms of seeing the department utilize technology and really trying to become a leader in terms of the next way of doing business, so to speak, in terms of Department of Transportation across the country. I only had one question because I just didn't hear the words, but is AI integrated with anything you're doing, or in a sense of where you think AI technologies, no doubt, maybe kind of intersection with the digital project delivery forward?
Yeah, for sure. I would say even today, and AI comes in a lot of different flavors, right? And I'm certainly no expert on AI, so I'll caveat that. But even today, AI is getting used in some of the things, particularly the scanning technologies, right? It's what we use with drones and getting the large imagery and then taking that information and creating it into, extracting information out from AI is one example that's prevalent in the industry today. But more so where I see it going forward is the work we're doing now at the foundational level. To be honest with you, we're doing a lot of work, I'm going to say, at the guts of our configuration or our, how do I say this, inside of our technologies, right? Our standards. We always had standards inside of there, but those standards in our CAD programs and our GIS and then our Trimble survey stuff have been geared towards, we need to produce plans, we need to shut things off and on so we can see it nice on there, make it bold. Well, that's changing, and we're changing that in a way to make it more of a digital aligned, right? And when we do that, I think that opens the door for, creative use of AI as we move forward, because we're going to have computer readable stuff that's standardized. We're going to be able to get, I think, a lot of benefit from QA and QC of what we do versus somebody sitting down and scrolling through that Lincoln South Beltway set of plans and saying, hey, we've got a culvert and there's information on 6 different spots here, and you changed it here but not there. With the use of AI, with the use of the data being standardized, and then with the use of things and rules like, hey, if I've got guardrail at this type, I should have something like this within this distance. You kind of see where I'm going, but I think, yes, I think it's going to really open the door that AI is going to be able to get into that information and give it, and tell us things that are right, wrong. There's already conflict analysis and things like that. So yeah, hopefully it helps. But
John, that's fabulous.
I just, commissioners, I just thank you, John, for your leadership on this program. We've been very excited about this for the past few years. What I wanted to make sure that we describe, though, that we are very thoughtful about our approach. We're not going to go so aggressive that our contractors are not ready. So we're trying to create this balanced selection of projects that the contractors are actually ramping up and getting ready for this key shift in our business. We think that this innovation is going to shift quickly, but we also want to make sure that we are in adherence with the competitive bidding process, so we don't hurt ourselves throughout the process. So, but thank you, John.
Yeah, thank you all. Is there anybody from the public like to speak on this item? We'll also have a chance at the end of the meeting for open mic. Next, we're gonna hear from our Aeronautics, Nebraska Department of Transportation Aeronautics Director, Jeremy Burrell.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. Thank you, guests. My name is Jeremy Burrell. I'm the Director for the Division of Aeronautics within the Nebraska Department of Transportation. Been asked to give a little bit of background on how we fit within the division, how we are funded, how airports operate in the state of Nebraska, as well as talk about a few of the ways that we are continuing to deepen the integration of aeronautics into the division or Department of Transportation. Start with some of the background. Then we'll talk about how airports are funded, how we are funded, very differently than the way things work for some of the roads projects, and what our relationship is with the airports. Also talk about some of our efforts as the Division of Aeronautics within NDOT, and then we'll talk about some of those projects that I highlighted or will be highlighting with respect to how we are working closely with some of the divisions as well as the districts across the state to work through some of our projects that are very unique and very specifically selected. Back in 2019, we conducted a state aviation system planning project. We worked closely with our stakeholders all across the airports community and aviation community, and they developed through collaboration this vision statement about what it is that our goal to enhance the aviation system of Nebraska. And how do when I look at that vision statement, how do I translate that into what we're doing? Our goal is to have equitable, efficient, and transparent utilization of our federal and state resources, making sure that we are maintaining what we have, making sure that we're building forward into the future, and doing it in the most efficient way that we possibly can. Let's talk about our actual system of airports across the state of Nebraska. As you take a look at this map, you're going to see a lot of dots on there. There's 78 public use airports across the state of Nebraska. They are all the way from Omaha Eppley, our leading commercial service airport, all the way down to airports that may only have a trip runway. Or in the case of the Alma Seaplane Base, that is Harlan County Reservoir, and that is an available location for seaplane landings. So we have just a wide variety all across the state, but you'll notice that they're very geographically dispersed, which is wonderful, especially as we look into the future of the technologies that we're going to start seeing come to Nebraska as they continue to mature across the industry. So we are very blessed that for many decades, the state has taken aviation and airport enhancement very seriously and in a thoughtful way. A little bit about the actual division or previous department. dates all the way back to 1935, the Nebraska Aeronautics Act. That's when the Aeronautics Commission was first created by the state legislature. That was later developed into the Department of Aeronautics back in 1945. And then back in 2017, as many will be familiar with, the Department of Transportation was formed with the merger of DOT or DOR and Department of Aeronautics at the time. A little background, we have the state-owned aircraft. It is currently a 2014 King Air C-90 GTX. It's available for all state government travel for official business. And then we also have 3 of those 78 airports that are state-owned. So they are owned and operated by the Department of Transportation Division of Aeronautics. And one thing that I did fail to mention when I was talking about the public use airports earlier, the 78 that we have, there are also private airports all across the state. There are over 150 of them. We have no regulatory oversight of those airports. Those are privately owned, and through Chapter 3 statute, Chapter 3, 136, those are restricted landing areas for personal use. And we do not oversee those. What are our functional areas? What is it that we do as a division? Airport services is really the meat and potatoes of what we do. That's the engineering side. That's project development. That's assisting those local communities. And then within that, we also inspect and license the airports. Every public use airport must be inspected on a triannual basis by our division, and then we issue a license for them to continue to operate. So that's something that we take very seriously. We have an inspection team that goes out and they see each one of those airports every 3 years. And we are putting feet on the ground. We're inspecting the pavements, surfaces, making sure we don't have any trees that are in the approach surfaces. Something that is labor intensive, but very important. We do some broad system planning. Flight services, as I mentioned, we have the aircraft. It's available to state government. We have a crew member on staff, and then we have a collection of contract pilots who we work with to provide us with additional service. We used to have more aircraft and more pilots, but we've really reduced that down to be as efficient as humanly possible through contracting services. Navigational aids, those aircraft that are flying all across our state have to figure out where they're going. The GPS is important, but we still continue to have ground-based services to back up those GPS. We maintain all of the non-federal ones across the state. They may be owned by a local entity, but we have agreements in which we go out and perform the inspection and certification that they are still meeting the FAA standards. Those are cost share agreements that we have with them. We also have weather sites across the state. Again, the non-federally owned ones are ones that we support and inspect. And then, as mentioned, we have 3 state-owned airfields: Harvard, Fairmont, and Scribner. And I'll talk about those in a little bit more depth when we get to some of our projects. But those are all former World War II era Army airfields that were transferred over to the state when local communities did not want to take responsibility for those at that time. How are we funded? We do not, similar to DOT, we do not have general fund appropriation, but we do receive user taxes and user fees. So aircraft fuel tax for aviation fuel, 5 cents a gallon and 3 cents a gallon for Jet A, which is what is in all the commercial aircraft, all those jet powered aircraft. Notably, those rates have not changed since 1985, and we actually reduced the Jet A at the time at the request of commercial service operators. They were saying that we'll just tanker in fuel from an adjoining state if you don't make your rates more competitive. So as remained flat as far as the revenue goes, and aircraft continue to get more efficient, so that's something that we're always keeping an eye on, and what is our next strategy. Aircraft sales and use tax. This is something that existed prior to 2023. All of those funds went to the general. The aviation community across the state of Nebraska has said this is a user tax that should be going into our system to make sure that our airports are being maintained in a safe and efficient manner. And so they were able to work with the legislature and get that passed in 2023, that LB 727. And that has been instrumental. I'll touch on that a little bit deeper here as we start talking about some of our projects. But that has really changed what we've been able to contribute as a state to these projects. And then Aeronautics Administrative Software, we were merged in 2017. Largely, it was in name only. We still existed at the airport. A lot of our expenses all came out of those fees that were being collected. But just like any other division of the Department of Transportation, we are members of that team. So it was identified again in that 2023 legislative session that those administrative fees should be covered by NDOT, similarly to any other. And so that was, once again, streamlining and continuing to integrate aeronautics into the department. And then notably, the state-owned aircraft and the airfields budgets, those are silent. Those are very restricted funds. And they each have some very unique pieces to them. But those user fees are not billing for those activities. Now, I think it's really important to highlight a little bit of the difference between how the highway system and the roads operate and how our airports are operated and funded. Those airport sponsors, those are our local communities across the state. We don't own, with the exception of our 3 state-owned airports, we don't own any of those assets. Those are not ours. So we work closely with those communities to figure out how they would like to prioritize their projects. And then we support them in the development of those projects. But the funding that they're going to receive is funding that is allocated to that community, whether it be a city, a county, or an airport authority. And that comes from the federal government. But we are notably a channeling act state, which means that all of that funding does pass through our office and we oversee. It's not our funding that we're delegating down to the airport. There's the airport's funding that is being channeled through our office and through the in collaboration with the Aeronautics Commission. Various federal contribution funds. The Airport Improvement Program is a longstanding one. That is our AIP program. It has both entitlement and discretionary. Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act has been absolutely monumental for our ability to continue to invest in airports in the state. Once again, has entitlement as well as discretionary funds that have been received across the state. And then within the discretionary pot, there is congressionally directed spending that is treated very similarly to the AIP program. But we've been lucky across the state to be strong recipients in that because of the congressional delegation that has been active in that. State contribution. This is where those funds that we receive from the user fees are able to be put back into that airport's community. And that's through our state aid grant program. We have various flavors of that. We have federal match. So airports are funded depending on the program, either a 90-10 split or a 95-5 split, or in some very rare cases, 100% federal funding, but those are incredibly rare, especially these days. But we provide some level of federal match because a lot of our communities don't have the ability to come up with that 10% when those larger projects come around. So that's one of the components of this. We have state aid only. Of those airports, 78 across the state, 72 of them are eligible for federal funding. 6 of them are ineligible based on their classification for receiving federal funding. So they, as a community, they tend to be our smallest and most resource constrained. They have to come up with all of that funding on their own. So we have some standalone programs where we can try to support those. Some of the projects we'll talk about later are those projects. And then our primary airports, right? Our largest airports, they have significantly higher cost of projects because when you look at the Omaha terminal, it's slightly less than $1 billion terminal, as they'd like to say. And then our runway project in Lincoln, that is almost $100 million in a single runway project. So those are significant. So we also recognize that a lot of the funding that we receive through those fees is coming from those large areas. And so we want to have something to get back to them in that sense, but they are not relying on our funding. It's a very small piece of what they are doing. And then local contribution. Those airports have to come up with their local match. And they can do that in various ways: revenues, community budgeting, bonding, and passenger facility charges for those commercial airports. These are some of the priorities that we have had as an agency. How do we get those state aid grants out in, again, equitable, efficient, and transparent ways? So we put together a program where we have developed a prioritization matrix and methodology so that we can score those projects in a way that reflects their impact to the community and give that information to our Aeronautics Commission, who actually oversees and allocates those funds. It's their responsibility to allocate state funds and approve the use of federal. We are implementing a grant management software system to make our job more efficient so that we can continue to do additional projects for those airports. We recognize the importance of maintaining existing infrastructure, so we're developing a pilot program to go back and start doing crack and joint repair. It was something that we used to do as an agency. We had a team that went out and did that at airports across the state. It was an unsustainable program, and so now we're identifying ways that we can work with contract services to consolidate and do projects across various airports. But maintenance is one of the most critical things we can do. So we need to make sure that we are investing and encouraging airports across the state to be investing in those areas. And then we are always looking at where we're going with respect to emerging technology. Recently seen an announcement from Amazon. They are doing drone delivery out of their Papillion warehouse. We are going to continue to see uncrewed aircraft systems integrated into our daily lives. Omaha Police Department has drones of first responder. I got the opportunity to peek behind the curtain of that operations center. It is incredible what they're doing, what they're able to see and impact and create safe environments for those officers to go about doing their job. It's what we are seeing is going to be incredible with respect to those. Advanced air mobility and airport electrification are other areas. We're starting to see those vertical takeoff aircraft that are going through the certification process with the FAA. Those are going to you're going to start seeing them operating in those large metropolitan areas, and that's eventually going to make its way to Nebraska. And that is going to change the way we look at those airports that are dispersed across the state. Some of those small airports in those communities, they may have struggled to maintain the 10 aircraft they need to get that federal funding, but when the aircraft cost goes down, aircraft utilization, aircraft maintenance goes down, they're going to be able to justify that short hop travel between those communities. So we're going to see a shifting landscape across our airports in the state. All of those diverse airports are going to have increased importance beyond what they do right now, which is already providing an economic engine for their community. We mentioned our commission several times. Our commission is a little bit different. There's only 5 members. It is a gubernatorial appointment. They are at-large positions that are not tied to any geographic location, and they have no political affiliation. They're 5-year terms, and this is our current Aeronautics Commission. Dr. Scott Terry with the University of Nebraska Omaha is our current chairman. He has been for the last 3 years. They're very involved, and as I mentioned, they are responsible for making our funding allocation decisions as well as approving federal funding. So an incredible role that they play in how we shape the future of our airports across the country. Talking about some of the projects that we have really started to lean into working with our other functional areas of DOT, so our other divisions, and then some of the district personnel across the state. This is Chapel, Nebraska. Many of you have probably driven past this airport, seen the golf course, and look right past the airport into the golf course and didn't even realize it was there, but it is an incredible resource for this community. They have aerial applicators that operate out there. They have businesses that come in and out of this airport, as well as medical flights that frequent this airport. Unfortunately, because it is not eligible, I will caveat that, is eligible for federal funding, but because of several caveats that the FAA has placed on, the FAA says if you want to continue to get federal funding, you need to move this airport at a cost of $20+ million over the course of 10 years. It is not something that will benefit the community, nor can the community afford. So they're ineligible for that reason for federal funding. So we always look at this airport as the state of the art funding. But it had essentially fallen into a state of disrepair, and I'll show you some photos here. So we have worked with this airport to develop a runway reconstruction to address the needs, but we ran into some funding constraints. We had to get creative. Pavement condition index is how we score our airport's pavements. This runway was our lowest score across all of our airports in the state. The picture is a little bit hard to see, but you can see that there's grass growing through the pavements. It's not a good sign. I went to my first national convention for airports, and my neighboring state was talking to me, a representative from Colorado, and he said, I was flying over to Nebraska the other weekend, and I went to stop at Chapel, and I did my low pass to see how the runway looked, and it looked like you guys needed to mow. And I had to think about it, because I hadn't been to Chapel recently, and I don't think that's a turf runway, so they shouldn't. And then it dawned on me, and we started to go down that conversation. He was absolutely right. We were in a situation where that pavement had failed. It needed to be addressed, or the airport, the only other option was the airport closes. It's a single runway facility, and that's not something that we want to see. So we had to have some hard conversations with the community and see what they had available to them. This is a video. This is just to, again, highlight how our pavement. When you're landing an aircraft or taking off in an aircraft, you don't want pavement loose. It's incredibly detrimental to all aspects of flying. So this surface was a serious hazard. So we told the airport, if we aren't able to come up with a project here in this airport, it will be such a liability that this runway has to be closed. And the completed project is really incredible, but it took a long time to get to this. What we did was this way airports bid their projects is they do a consultant selection. The consultant will help develop the project, and then they put the project out for bid. It doesn't go through the Department of Transportation. This was put together by one of our consultants within the state, Olson. They did an excellent job of getting the project design, getting it ready to go, goes out for bid. This project has been awarded a state grant to do it, to execute the project. And that was based on the engineer's estimate. It goes out to bid, and because the bidding environment at the time was a little bit unfavorable, ended up coming in over budget. And so we had to look at it and say, do we shelve this project? Do we close this airport? Or do we find a way to narrow that funding gap? And so we looked at ways that we could save costs. There's a couple of different things. We looked at the actual design itself. We made some cost savings measures there. And then we worked with the consultant. The consultant said, if you guys are able to use your aeronautics staff or some members of the DOT to do construction observation and actual project supervision, we can remove our consultant costs from the airport. So that created the conversation. What would that look like with us working with the district and with our aeronautics staff to go out and execute this? We had to answer some questions. Well, those individuals are highway funded, and we don't commingle those funds. And so is there an administrative and accounting function that we can do to make sure that we track all of that and get paid back? There are the grants that are supporting this project, and certainly there are. And so we put our heads together. We worked as a department, as a whole, as a cohesive unit, and we answered those questions, and we worked really closely with Doug out there in District 5, and he's so eager to try new things. I'm really appreciative of that. And so we worked through all these problems. And there were stumbling blocks along the way, and we learned so much from this project. But what we found is that when we come into these unique situations, and it doesn't work across all projects, we have some opportunities here to lean on those resources that DOT has and still use aeronautics funding to make sure that it's being done in the correct manner. And so we're really happy to see that this project came to fruition. We actually have an open house today. Some of the aeronautics staff is out there seeing it. The local community was so enthused about this, and they cared so much. They were such strong advocates that once they were able to see that this was becoming a reality, there was private investment that came in and said, well, we got this fixed, but our light infrastructure for lighting the runway has failed as well. And so they got a private investment to support the airport, donated to the airport, so they were able to do an additional project and get this lighted so that it can be an all day, all night airport. So we're really excited. That money that the Aeronautics Commission allocated for this ended up accelerating that community's ability to see the value of this investment and continue to grow that community that otherwise would have lost a valuable asset. Arapahoe, this is another one of our small airports across the state, not eligible for federal funding. This is an aging asphalt runway that was in desperate need of some preventative maintenance to make sure that we're getting the life cycle out of it. Had some really low scores, not quite as low as Chapel, but because of the funding constraints, this airport just couldn't fund an entire seal coat for its runway. We just had to have those tough conversations and say, we need you as a community to come up with what you can, and then we'll identify the funding gap and go from there. It took about 12 years to get to the point that we were able to put this fully together, and that is much longer than I would like to see as well. Well before my time, and I am glad that we were able to bring this to fruition. This was just recently completed. But we have a pavement preservation program. It's a legacy program that we've had for years. I had some funding sitting in it. We were able to identify this as a viable candidate, went out for bid because of the location and some of the small volumes with respect to what we were asking for in this contract. It wasn't a popular item to bid on. So we didn't get good bids. We didn't get, in one of our iterations, we didn't get a single bid. Eventually, we were able to repackage it in a manner that was favorable, and we got it out there, and we were able to allocate funds to it. And again, we had to look at cost savings measures. And so we leaned on what we learned from Chapel And we designed this one in-house. This was not through a consultant. And what we were able to do through that effort was really streamline the process. We didn't have to reinvent it halfway through and try to figure out those gaps. We designed it with this in mind from the beginning. It went through our department-led procedures and ultimately become, again, a very successful project. What they did there is they went and identified all of the cracks and joints that needed refilled, cleaned out, refilled, sealed all those up, and then they did a seal overlay. And that will extend the life of this runway that we just cannot afford to reconstruct. When we have projects like Chapel that have completely failed, we need to get every year of life out of these. So this maintenance is absolutely critical. We're going to continue to do it. I learned, again, a lot of things with this one. Knowing that we are going to try to bring some of these things in-house early completely changes our efficiency and our ability to do it in an effective way. And again, really drawing the line of where those funds are coming from and how they're being utilized, tracking it is absolutely critical. Beautiful completed project. This was completed within the last month. We're going through final closeout right now, and excited to see that this community is going to have an asset, a very valuable asset to continue to provide access and position them for future aircraft advancements. Shifting gears a little bit, we've talked about projects exclusively funded through the state aid grant program. We've talked about our pavement preservation. Now, this is our state-owned airfields, and these are unique in their own sense. They have a trust fund that was developed through the sale of some of the other property that was no longer needed. And that is how we fund these projects, as well as a little bit of federal funding. We have federal funding eligibility for these. These airfields have significant quantities of pavement. We have been right-sizing them for decades at this point. There's a time when we were in a wartime stance. They built them in such a short period of time. They did excellent. They're robust pavement sections, and they have lasted for decades longer than they were ever projected to last. But we are now to the point where they're beginning to have significant issues, and there is not funding to sustain them in their current size. So we have been going through vigorous planning process to figure out what is the appropriate amount of pavement that we need so that we can continue to maintain them in a cost-efficient manner and provide a safe environment. We can't allow our pavements to fail and create an unsafe environment. Mentioned a combination of federal and state funding, and then where we were able to save some cost here is rather than having to send out all of our testing that was done for these projects, we were able to work with materials and research to have some of that testing done in-house. And again, it's important that we track and reimburse from our aeronautics fund, but we have these resources in-house to do it much more efficiently than having to send it out. So this is another area that we continue to work across divisions and across district to find that cost savings and rebuild this infrastructure in the most efficient way we can. I'd like to just close with the impact of our airports across. So we know that roads connect us on the ground. They are our lifeblood. Our air connection, our point of connection with not only airports across the state, but on a global network are our airports. Even those local airports are a connection to those next size up, all scales. Eventually getting to Omaha, who's about to bring in international service, which is something I'm very excited about. But we did a study back in 2019, look at economic impact, $8.6 billion of annual economic impact through all aspects, supports 90,000 plus jobs directly or indirectly. And then when you look at businesses who are looking to go into a community, they want air access. Because if you're a manufacturing facility and you have a part that goes down on an assembly line, you need to be able to get that part today. And so that airport provides that access. As mentioned, the access to the national and global airspace systems. That, as a traveler, I love to travel. It's something I'm passionate about. Being able to connect globally is important for Nebraska's citizens. We're an agricultural state. We're just on the tail end of our agricultural application season. I'm sure everybody has seen those yellow and white planes screaming across the sky. They are increasing our area or our agricultural output across the state through application of fungicides, pesticides in an efficient and low impact manner. And then one of the things I think is most important is that emergency access for communities. We were struck this year by wildfire events again. We have single engineer tanker bases across the state and then mobile ones that are able to rapidly respond to those fires across the state, to provide an additional tool in that toolbox, the emergency responders, to try to get those put out and mitigate the impact of those communities. And we saw it in 2012, 2019 with floods, particularly Fremont. Fremont was completely isolated from roads for a period of time. That airport became the single conduit of resources getting in and people getting out. And so we want to make sure that those airports are always prepared and able to be able to be that conduit. Medical access across our community as well. And that will, as we start looking at drones and what their capability is, start being able to see prescription medicine delivery in some of those rural communities, really increase the ability for individuals across Nebraska to age in their community. It's a lot in a short period of time, but I wanted to make sure, really highlight what we do as a division within the Department of Transportation. I open it up to any questions anybody have.
Do any of the commissioners have some questions? Yes.
I don't have a question, but I really appreciate your comment there about economic development and medical or whatever. Ironically, North Platte was opened up their new terminal this Monday, and the ribbon cutting. Thanks to you guys working with those people, tremendous facility out there, and as you say, our connection with Denver plays a role in every part.
Absolutely. Had the opportunity to attend that ribbon cutting. That was a long project in getting it to its current status. Beautiful terminal. It is a shining star in terminals across Nebraska. And the beautiful thing about what's going on there at North Platte is we just got their employment numbers for the last reported year, and they are increasing in double-digit percentages. And so we can see it. Those are full planes, and that just shows the demand that is particularly in western Nebraska.
In fact, that is the Platte.
Yes, they have. And both North Platte and Scottsbluff just renegotiated their EAS and have made their selection and proposals to FAA as far as which ones they want to select. Continue to see the exciting growth that's happening all across our commercial service airports and our general airports.
Any other questions? Thank you, Jeremy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, now we move on to have Khalil, Chief Operating Officer, to speak to us about the SIP, State Infrastructure Bank.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll be brief. I know everybody's been patient for this input. So this is in April 2026, Governor Fell signed Legislative Bill 1126. Is really now codified the state statute 392901 through 392939. This is included the enactment of the Infrastructure Development Investment Program Act. So what does that mean? It authorized our state infrastructure back to the SIP. And what this was one of those duties that are assigned to the Highway Commission. It is to be administered by the State Highway Commission with administrative and operation support from NDOT. Really, the purpose of that is to provide assistance in financing the acceleration of any eligible projects by providing loans and other forms of financial assistance to counties, municipalities, and other eligible entities for construction improvement and transportation infrastructure. SIP serves as a source of capital probably for low interest and flexible repayment terms loan. That's really why we wanted to put that program. And so to help make the SIP in Nebraska a reality, we sought the assistance of the technical team from Federal Highway Group. Obviously, that requires a lot of different coordination with them, and sometimes enter into a cooperative agreement with this group. So I'll quickly just read the top part of the resolution and see if there's any questions. Really, the Nebraska Department of Transportation is seeking a delegation of authority from Nebraska State Highway Commission under the Infrastructure Development Investment Program Act. This is to serve as the Nebraska State Highway Commission agent in performing the administrative and technical function as necessary to implement the act as set forth. This delegation of authority will not limit or restrict the commission's power and duties listed in the act. And And so with that, I'll pause and possibly, if you want to read the resolutions or can, but I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Yes, Marissa.
NDOT hereby requests the Nebraska State Commission to authorize NDOT to serve as commission's agent in establishing the program set forth in the Nebraska statutes by entering into a cooperative agreement with the Federal Highway and performing the administrative and technical functions necessary to implement the act. Now, therefore, be it resolved in accordance with the statute, the Nebraska State Highway Commission hereby authorizes NDOT to serve as the commission's agent in establishing the program by entering into a cooperative agreement with the Federal Highway and performing the administrative and technical functions necessary to implement the act.
So moved.
Then moved and seconded. Let's open it up for discussion. Do we have anybody questions?
Keep the commission informed. Like, how this is well interest goes to government entities in Nebraska, cities and counties. How are you gonna keep us informed? Work when, what do you think?
I think, first of all, we're gonna go through a process to set really the procedure how to implement the program. Yeah, we don't have it until July of next year, but we will help the Federal Highway, the rights in time to be able to proceed with that. The second thing is we're gonna start to look for opportunities once we have this cooperative agreement signed with Federal Highway, try to come up with a way to capitalize the SIP fund. Every time, once we read the rule of regs, you will see a lot of friendly meetings coming in here making presentation. It's going to be periodic, and then every action that we need to take, if any entities go after a loan from the SIP, is going to be the action of the Highway Commission, where the NDOT will come, make the presentation, tell you the information that we've seen, CNL is completed, and then the action will be really for the Highway Commission to approve it or not.
That was gonna be my question too. Any other questions on this? It's been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll?
Commissioner Hawks, Commissioner Wolford, Commissioner Meister,
Yes.
Commissioner McGinnis,
Yes.
Commissioner Mello,
Yes.
Commissioner Koppel.
Yes.
He says yes.
The public input portion of our meeting. We received any letters? Since we have no letters at this time, would anybody be willing? Sir, go ahead. You have one for each of them? I have one for each.
Thank you.
It's Jim Bunch, JIMBUNCH, Northeast Lincoln. Several years ago, there was a state senator. She was from the Ohio. For New Campbell, she expressed concern that she had been boxed in by semis trying to get to Lincoln. When semis were 3 wide. So what was done, I guess by NDOT, is they put up black and white signs between Lincoln and Omaha that say semis stay in the right 2 lanes. However, there's no law, there's no legislation or regulation. Nebraska doesn't have a 3rd lane law. For 4 years, I commuted daily to my job in Vista from Lincoln, getting on it here, fellas, and often in both directions encountered 3 wide semis on some of the uphill grades. The one here, Breton, is pretty significant, and they're chugging along at 60 or 65 when the traffic flow is going 75 or more. So it's an unsafe condition. So what I'm asking you to do
is to put the wheels in motion for Nebraska to implement the third lane law on any interstate highway that's 3 or more lanes. I put a lot of information in my letter. I had emailed everyone back in November. I just spoke with Commissioner McGinnis last week, and so I'm glad this meeting is today. I've included as an example Massachusetts law. Several states have these, and there's also the picture on my dash cam one day of the semis on that uphill bridge in Gretna. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jim.
Any questions, sirs?
I'm going to look into this a little. bit.
Okay, great.
Venus along, this would be something for the legislature, correct?
Yeah, well, I got nowhere with the transportation committee.
Okay.
I've been trying to get this done back to when Senator Bex was the chairman. So it was suggested by a friend of mine on the Public Service Commission to start here.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to guess or want to get up and state your name?
My name's Jerry Johnson. I'm Mayor of Wahoo. First of all, thank you for the resolution today. But ask one question, is it governor approved? From the standpoint that twice funding has been set up, I believe, for this project, and it gets diverted to Norfolk funding and also Fremont. Bypass to Fremont. So hopefully, this resolution will stand, and it's definitely needed. I'm going to talk a little bit about the history, and part of this is a little bit personal, but when I was in grade school, we used to travel 38, which is the best way to get Holdridge to Illinois. And one of the issues we had every time we went through in the spring, it would flood. You have to go around as well. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But since 1960, I've been interested in this project. Since 1960, I went to Luther College in Wahoo. 1962, I married a girl from Wahoo. 2004, we moved to Wahoo. And in 2006, I entered into the development side of it. This project has been called many things. It's been called Wahoo Mead, Wahoo Omaha, Fremont, South. One of the things that I feel is important in this project, adding that roundabout at 109 is very beneficial because it was one of the 3 most dangerous intersections in the state of Nebraska. Took care of that. Took a little bit to get the semis to slow down. We've had 2 of them that have rolled over, but no fatalities. So that's been great. The other question, or the other part of it is, I'm also on the Lower Platte North NRD, and we are in the process of building. We built Shelter, protected the north side, Wahoo from flooding with Lake Wanahoo, and now we're building 9 dams, starting in Saunders County at Prague, actually coming south of Wahoo because some of the flooding happens in Wahoo, but a lot of the times in 92, that intersection is underwater, and so that should help those situations. We do have a lot of traffic that comes out of Omaha when there's something happens on the interstate or on Highway 6. We just get put in. So the importance of a 4-lane into 31 is getting more prevalent, I believe. That leads me to the point that I personally, I believe the project that you're working on now, the Fremont, that Wahoo to me should be the first one to 4 lane to be built. So restrictions on that. The last building, long yards, been taken down now. And so we can get that going. Somehow we can get to the Platte River at least, in one segment, then town. It would be a way to solve that problem. So, again, appreciate the resolution today. A lot more years behind me than ahead of me, but I hope I'm close to seeing that completed. We can take it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
Sir, could you spell your name for the record?
Pardon?
Would you spell your name for the record?
J-E-R-Y Johnson, S-O-N.
Is there anybody else? Yes. Like, come forward.
Yes, please. Thank you.
My wife's spelled.
Hello, Commissioners. My name is Lucas Freschel, Lucasfroeschl. I'm the economic developer in Falls City. Born and raised in Falls City, and I'd like to give you a little update on what we got going on. A couple projects are planned in Falls City. Salem Bridges, Falls City Bridges on West 21st Street, Highway 8 in August of 27. There's a reconstruction project for Highway 73 through town in May of 29. And also East 14th Street, Highway 159 going east to Rulo around the same time. I've been in the role for about 5.5 years. When I took over, we had some option agreements for 1,000 acres south of town called the Mid-America Rail Campus. I took over in March 21, kind of talked with economic development, state office, and said, how do I market this site along the UP line? Am I open to the whole wide world, or do I lock in on some sort of market? So they said the governor's got this bioeconomy initiative. And so we went all in on, bioeconomy, trying to recruit to this site. Falls City's in a unique situation, corner of the state. We don't have any power. Our town runs on about 12 megawatts, and there's like a megawatt or a megawatt and a half on that 69 kV that feeds through the OPPD system. So to kind of salvage the hometown, we got to work, and we got a $15 million grant passed by the state. We coupled that with a $20 million bond, utility bond, and we are close to hopefully finalizing a $5 million grant from the EDA to help pay for a substation. This is all to get a new transmission line to Falls City so that we have a chance to grow. Okay, this is all about economic development. This is all about Falls City being a good return on investment for the state. This is all about trying to reverse negative economic trends. 53%, free reduced lunches at our public school system. These kids deserve a chance, to create prosperity for their families. And that's what I'm there to do. I'm here simply not requesting anything. Been working with Brandon. He's been awesome to work with. 12 years ago, there was a plan to convert, the Highway 73 from 4-lane configuration to a 3-lane. They came down, NDOT came down, and our ag community kind of, let them have it, if you will. And so NDOT kind of, paused that project. They patched some stuff up, and now, it appears that a 3-lane configuration is on the way, narrowing the road from 50-foot wide to 40-foot wide into a 3-lane configuration. One thing I want to make clear is, leadership in Falls City it's very proud that, a $12.5 million, project is going to be in Falls City. We don't want to lose that project, but, simply just want to maybe ask, the board to maybe look at Falls City through a lens of, in 2029 instead of, 10 years ago. The traffic counts obviously dictate the investment numbers. I totally get that. Public commissions can't invest on speculation. Totally get that. But we're trying to create an opportunity here. And perhaps, it makes sense to maybe evaluate what Falls City will look like. Citronic Chemicals announced in November of 24, a $5 billion project at our Mid-America Rail Campus, expected to be the largest investment in state history. In December of 25, a group of local landowners who have comprised either owned or got options on almost 3,000 acres around. Falls City's unique. We got UP and BNSF that cross. There's a ton of undeveloped land around there. We're equidistant between Omaha and Kansas City. There's 4.2 million people that live within 100 miles of Falls City. No town can say that in the state of Nebraska. Our access to the Kansas City industrial market makes it a good spot for development. And the Nebraska Rural Generation Project is all about building a power plant to help power this bio polypropylene project that Citronic is looking to bring to the state. Generally speaking, polypropylene is petroleum based. They're looking to do it with ethanol and add new market value to 137 million of corn, Nebraska corn. So I want to be a resource for you guys. I want to, keep working with you. If the 3-lane configuration in Falls City is the way it's got to be, then so be it. But we're hoping to make some good announcements here in the next few months. Kelly Knopf is one of the co-founders of Citronic. He interviewed with Nebraska Rural Radio Network about 3 weeks ago. At the end of the interview, she asked, what's next? He said, we got some exciting announcements coming in the next 2 months. We hold those option agreements at the site through May of 28. We are hoping to execute those options in 26. And Kelly said in this interview, we're still planning on construction in 27 and operational by 29. In February of this year, I went down to DeSoto, Kansas, where they have welcomed Panasonic and a $4 billion battery manufacturing plant project. And they said one of the things that we're proud that we did early was work with KDOT. KDOT built, a 4-lane road to their site, and they said that was, it was important that we started working with them early. So not here to ask anything, simply here to inform, let you know that we're trying to make Falls City a place that the state can be proud of. And I think I covered all my bullet points. I think that's it. Does anybody have any questions about anything?
Any commissioners? No, thank you for coming and giving us update on this project.
Okay, thank you.
Hopefully it's something we have to deal with.
I sure hope so.
Yes, sir.
Bill Torson, VILL-PHORSON. I'm the chairman of the board of Village Mead. We have some concerns. They told us at the public meeting that the reason they wouldn't think about bypassing to the north is because businesses struggle with finding the people coming by the highway. Our problem is all our businesses are on the highway. The highway coming through, it's going to take out our business, our gas station or store. On the south side of the road, we actually have lagoons from the city that are right at the right of way that aren't things you can just move. So we have a concern about that. And with that concern, I was wondering if they took into effect on that when they did the roundabout at 7792. Because the design of that is probably going to determine exactly where that road is going to come, whether it's going to go more straight. Way we've looked at it, there's only a couple corners to the north that would be impacted. It went up to have a 4 mile north instead of 7, 8 homes and 3, 4 businesses. So we have a real hard time of getting out of Mead at times because of the traffic. So we do know that this road is necessary. We know that a 4-lane has to come. But we're also learning how we're going to get out of Mead when we now have 2 more lanes of traffic to cross to get out. So them are some of my concerns and the people's concerns. I believe we've sent some letters in and some things that have been filled out by the public. So we would like you to, and I know it's a long distance away, probably before it gets done, but the 9277 roundabout concerns me about. That's probably first, and that's going to kind of determine where we're at. So I would appreciate it if you guys kind of take into effect on that. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Bill. Any questions?
Thanks.
Anybody else like to come forward? Yes.
Shirley Niemeyer, SHIRLEYNIEMEYER. And thank you for this opportunity. Also, thank you for the roundabout that we have here in Northwood. It's going to go well and really speeds up getting onto Highway 6. Highway 6 has a lot of traffic, and most of my comments are about that. First of all, I thought I have three or four cost cutting I know the budget's tight, for our state and we're in debt. But one of the ideas is to reduce the cutting of trees when you're doing a project. Yes, I know you have safety requirements, but I was going out west and I took Highway 92. This is about 15 years ago. And I got to a area where it was detoured on, I think the other highway was closer to Florida. This highway was very young. And they had cut down, I would say for 15 or 20 miles, every tree along that highway, every tree. And if you've been on some of those highways with hills, I mean, you cannot get a car up there unless you went airborne. Could not. So I couldn't understand why they cut down all those trees. And I think that's the way, I mean, kind of rethink, do they really need to take the tree out? And can they even get to it? Or could you put guards there and save the trees? And the reason I'm very passionate about this, we have climate change going on and we need every tree possible. That is a reality. They say what's going to be important. So if the same trees are going to save money, and certain legislators and the governor would like that. And so that's one thing that is possible for cost money. Okay, I wanted to talk about Amelia Hill, the Gretna Mall. I'm sure you've heard about that. The Gretna Mall is an interesting traffic flow. That's the one where you have a U-turn. And some of those are trucks. And it just slows traffic down. I do not understand why there's no road that used to, but to go around and come out on the road that has the traffic light on. And those of you that know that intersection know what I'm talking about. When I come from Gretna on Highway 6 and drive on Highway 6 by the major federal highway, and I want to turn right to go to Ashland, I'm in the lane that's going to go forward. Why am I in the lane that's going to go forward? That backs me up sometimes half a mile or more. I've seen traffic back way up there. So add a turn lane on Highway 6 coming from Gretna going to Ashland. Now, you'll have to change some things and restrict it at certain times. But that would really shorten the length of time to turn. There's some other places coming from the mall, turning right, add another turn lane there. There's a lot of things that could happen there, but that is, I think, I've heard people say it's a first section in Nebraska. And so I would really, really encourage you to study that and see what you can do. And that's the Amelia Hill in Gretna Outlet Mall, Highway 6. Thank you on that one. Okay. Also, I wanted to talk about the amount of development that's going on in Ashland, Iron Horse, and Whitetail Run. There's a lot of children out there. I don't know how many. School would know, maybe 200, maybe more. I don't think we bus there because it's so. We did have, and Jim can probably remember this better than I can. We had a school crossing across Highway 6 at one time. It's gone. And, if we could have a light, a school cross lane. Now, I know they have to put the sidewalks. It's not a problem with that. But we really need school crossing. Doing an overpass. I don't know how we can afford that. I don't know if the highway does that. I don't know if you used to do that, but I don't think we can afford that. So we need something that can protect the children that are crossing. And so please resurrect that highway crossing. Maybe Jen knows where it was. Along with one last comment, Highway 6 going up to Million Mountain, used to have these huge, I mean, they're huge trees, huge. Had pictures of when they cut them down. And I heard at one point, somebody said they were going to turn that Highway 6 into a parkway. Possible. But even replanting some of the trees would be helpful. Because it was so, they almost canopied. And I know highway safety is really critical, but we need to think about our future and our children's future and cutting the trees. We do have land. Okay, thank you so much.
You bet. Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to come forward at this point? Seeing none, I want to thank everybody for showing up and thank the speakers for being here. Very informative. Yes, sir.
Jim Anderson, Mayor, City of Ashland.
Jim, can
Just
you go
like
to
to
the
thank
mic,
you.
please?
Oh, here we are. Jim Anderson, Mayor, City of Ashland. I just want to thank everybody and thank you fellas for being here. I and Chuck Niemeyer were able to join some of you folks for dinner last night at our nice room and steakhouse. And this is a nice place to be. And if need be, this room can be divided into two. And I'm very proud of my nephew, astronaut Clay Anderson. And in 2007, when he launched up the International Space Station for 51 days, he took all these pictures here from 200 to 250 miles up. So anyway, appreciate you folks. Welcome and have a great day.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Marissa, you want to give us updates?
Mhm.
Coming up?
The Nebraska Department of Transportation has 5 public meetings scheduled between now and the next Highway Commission meeting. NDOT will hold a public meeting for the US 77 and N91 project on Tuesday, September 15th, 2026 from 5 to 7 p.m. A local public meeting for the Lincoln County Crossroads Study will take place on Thursday, September 17th from 5 to 7 p.m. at the MPCC South Campus Theater. NDOT will also hold a public meeting for the Pender East Bridge and in Pender projects on Thursday, September 17th from 4 to 7 p.m. at the Pender Community Center. NDOT will also hold a public meeting for the I-480 corridor study, I-80 to Harney Street project on Tuesday, September 22nd, 2026 from 5 to 7 p.m. at the Barbara White's Community Engagement Center in Omaha, Nebraska. And finally, a local public meeting for the Fort Calhoun with Safe Transportation Project will take place on Tuesday, October 13th, 2026 from 5 to 7 p.m. at Northern Lights venue at 310 North 14th Street in Fort Calhoun, Nebraska. The next scheduled Highway Commission meeting is October 23rd, 2026 at 8:30 a.m. in Kearney, Nebraska.
Thank you, Marissa. Any of the other to say at this point? If not, I do want to say I'm looking forward to having everybody in Kearney. We have some great facilities out there, and I'll be looking forward to having everyone. No worries, Carmen. With that, our meeting is adjourned.